Hello.
Привіт!
Since childhood, when I got into aeromodeling,
у мене
I was breathless from stories about the dawn of aviation. I read aviation magazines, and I was amazed by the courage of the pioneers of aviation, who went into the sky on wings made of little more than rags and sticks. These were real heroes, Iron Men, on wings made of rags and sticks. And one day, I realized I want to touch this too, at least a little, to touch their glory, the spirit of pilots and pioneers of aviation, who often learn from very bitter mistakes. I have always liked the Nieuport. This aircraft to me was a living embodiment of that era. Can I, from thin wooden strips, plywood, fiberglass, rubber, aluminum, build a flying scale model? And most importantly, will it fly? Just like 100 years ago, the main material of the aircraft structure is wood. For lightness and flexibility, I used Carpathian spruce. After rough processing, I sanded the strips for strength. I glued the strips into a T profile.
І тут я вирішив, що
Here I decided that diagonal braces would be unnecessary. I had to saw them off. The whole point is to achieve the right balance. The structure must be light and strong. If I make it too heavy, I won't get the correct balance, the correct center of gravity. A rearward shift of the center of gravity is a guarantee of unstable flight. Excess weight in the tail boom and tail surfaces turns into kilograms of lead in the nose. The fight for aircraft weight was the main engineering task 100 years ago, and it is the same today. The tail must not be too heavy and not too strong like a bridge. Just like in the original structure. I used 10mm plywood.
Але є відмінність.
Inside, I have 8mm poplar plywood, reinforced with 1mm birch plywood.
Березовою фанерою. А на Nieuport
On the real Nieuport,
це були
these were steel sheets.
сталеві листи.
The main bulkhead must be made strong, simple, and at the same time, light. It is necessary to correctly distribute technological holes and stress concentration areas the most heavily loaded areas. I reinforced additionally with plywood and steel bushings. The cowling was traditionally made of aluminum, but I decided to make it from fiberglass, a composite. The cowling was not only an aerodynamic fairing, it enclosed the rotary engine. The engine rotated together with the propeller and sprayed exhaust gases and oil all around. At that time, the industry had not yet established production of high-quality oil. They used castor oil. It literally flooded the entire aircraft structure. Streaks turned into a sticky, black slurry, which mechanics washed off with a soap and ammonia solution. It was an ancient micellar water for the aircraft. We will return to the special effect of this oil later. Now, I must rigidly fasten the fuselage structure to the main bulkhead. For this, I join the bulkhead wall with the truss members, using plywood gussets with glue . The strength and precision of attaching the central struts to the power box is extremely important. To reinforce the joints between the strips, I make ultralight gussets from thin fiberglass laminate. Now, everything is reliable. The control system of the control surfaces There was no space in the pilot's seat for a parachute.
Командування
The Entente command forbade
забороняло
pilots to use
пілотам
parachutes
пілотам,
because they
мовляли,
believed
нема
pilots would
технічних
start
підстав.
abandoning aircraft.
Втім, цікаво,
Interestingly,
але
observers on
спостерігачі
balloons had
аеростатами
parachutes.
парашути мали. Німецький
German
ас
ace Ernst
Ернст
Udet
Уде
survived thanks to a parachute.
вижити завдяки парашуту.
After that, he flew for another 4 months and achieved 22 victories, bringing his total to 62.
Загальний рахунок до 60. Для збереження балансу
To maintain balance and center of gravity,
просто
I use cable
керування.
control for the control surfaces. Michelin wheels,
Від компанії Michelin. Це та сама
the same
компанія,
company, that is
що й
still
донині
famous for high quality
славиться
tires.
якісними автомобільними колесами.
The same
Та
company that created the
що
Michelin star
створила
rating.
класифікацію ресторанів по зіркам Michelin. Та сама, що свого часу
The same one that once absorbed Citroën. Modern two-component polyurethane allows to imitate rubber. The landing gear shock absorption fully repeats the original. Rubber cords on the half axles provided better damping on landing. The entire structure, like the original, is covered with several layers of lacquer. This is protection from moisture, from oil. Only this nitrocellulose layer protected the structure from warping and swelling. Before flight, technicians check the upper wing position to the millimeter, and I did the same. An important role, both in the model and in the original, is played by the bracing wires. They are tensioned using turnbuckles, because the accuracy and symmetry of adjustment defines the entire behavior of the aircraft. Now, I glue the covering fabric to the frame. At that time, the fabric was stitched. To tighten the surface, I use a special iron. 100 years ago, workers brushed dope onto the fabric. Often, they fainted from solvent fumes. I use the same fabric tightening effect. Painting and markings, always an exciting and extremely important process. This is what makes the model either look like a real aircraft or turn into a cheap toy.
Справжній пропелер був багатошаровий.
The real propeller
Клеєний
was laminated from ash plates. I exactly reproduced the structure. This film is a heavily shortened version of the full process, shown in the playlist on my channel. You are welcome. Take a look. For Nieuports, propellers were made by Levasseur. I use a two-stroke gasoline engine, XXVII. To direct the exhaust downward and reduce noise to 95 decibels, as required by FAI rules. I soldered a muffler from an old army canteen. The model is painted, assembled, and the engine would not start. For several days, I pulled the propeller. My hand hurt, and the engine would not start. Brand new. At first, I thought the ignition had failed. Here is spark.
Прикручую. движка.
Now there is no spark. I was in despair. If I don't start the engine soon, I will miss the flying season. Day after day, and the engine would not start. It turned out I had installed the throttle plate 180 degrees wrong. I fixed it, and the engine started singing. That moment, you don't forget. A small windshield. In front of the pilot, it's slightly protected from wind and oil mist,
але водночас заважав дістатися до кулемету.
but at the same time, it made it difficult to reach the machine gun.
Тому його робили ні.
So it was made foldable. And sometimes you had to hit it hard so that it would start working again. The cockpit cutout was covered with leather to protect the pilot from sharp edges. Nieuport had a distinctive feature, the attachment of the turtle deck, the so-called ruffles. Remember,
Пам'ятаєте,
I
я
promised to
обіцяв
tell
вам
about the effect of castor oil?
бензиновий олей. В польоті бувало
Pilots
так,
experienced
аж різало
severe stomach pain,
Але
but not always
цікаво,
from fear.
причина була в страху. Касторова олія
Castor oil from the engine was sprayed around with the exhaust,
було разом із дихом. Пілоти
and pilots inhaled its vapors directly in the air.
Касторка
Castor oil
міцне.
is a strong laxative,
Тому
so after landing,
посадка
pilots tried as quickly as possible to go to the proper place and leave behind everything that had built up during the flight. A good countermeasure was considered to be blackberry brandy. Sometimes it was taken into flight, well, for prevention. If this were a real aircraft of 1917, its Lerone engine would last only about 30 hours in the air before a complete overhaul. I spent more time making the cowling than that engine lived in the air. For many mechanics, starting the engine could end with broken arms. Two filler caps, one for oil, one for fuel. The second one also serves as my filler plug. To build one aircraft, a team of 150 skilled workers needed a little more than one working day. That is about 200 man-days. My Nieuport 27 was built for more than 5 years. To create this model, I spent more than 300 evenings, 5 to 6 hours each. If I had worked at the Nieuport factory, I would have built a real aircraft in that time. Such a large model barely fits into a car. So it has to be disassembled for storage and assembled again for sky rides. Every flight is tension, a test of spirit. The fate of years of work is at stake. That is why we are essentially adrenaline seekers. We take part in special competitions. Models must comply with FAI rules. This year, the World Championship will take place in Great Britain. My dream is to take part in it. It is not only far, but also expensive.
Ой, красава!
The first flight was successful.
Хвилювання.
Tension, will it fly or not?
Це буде просто.
The flight was epic. Since then, I have flown often and with great pleasure. More than 100 flights,
Між 100 польотів. Та ось от
and then one day, due to electronic warfare, there was a failure of the control system.
Моя мета була
My goal was to take part in the World Championship in Great Britain.
Великій Британії. Ця
This
модель
model is
зруйнована,
destroyed,
але шанс
but the chance to get there still
попасти
exists.
змагання все ще є. Якщо ви хочете
And if you want
стати
to
частиною
become part of this story,
цієї історії,
to help me go this way,
пройти мені цей шлях, то кожна кава, яку ви приймаєте,
every coffee you buy from me brings my dream closer.
приблизить на кілометр здійснення моєї мрії. Всі посилання
The link
знаходяться
is in the description.
навіть
Even a subscription
підписка
is great support for my channel.
до мого каналу.
Thank you. Well, that's it. 2 years of flying, many years of work. This happens to every modeler. A common fate of such models. It is a pity, but life goes on. I will start again, create again. Glory to the model. Glory to the new model.